Coffee is a spice, and when you're drinking the fluid coffee, you're drinking spiced hot water. It's a culinary experience. It's not an artistic experience or a scientific experience. It's a culinary experience. Now, my lead roaster is a guy named Chris, and Chris, his background is from the kitchens. He was the executive chef alongside Georges Perrier from the Bec Fond, the #1 French restaurant in the country for many, many years. And he took that experience and brought it here to La Colombe, and he roasts coffee. And there's no inconsistency there. He is our lead chef. He's the man who cooks the coffee. And he views the coffee experience, outside of it from being mechanical or anything else, that it's a culinary, it's a culinary process.
This is the Starbarista Podcast, covering global cafe culture.
Name's Chris Miller. I'm the coffee roaster for La Colombe Coffee. It involves purchasing of green beans, selection of green beans, continuing to make the blends that are specific for La Colombe Coffee, roasting and production for all of the coffee for La Colombe.
And what do you do to keep everything consistent and good?
For consistency and for goodness, we have the majority of our roasting plant is computer automated. We have certain programs that we have come up that are specific for the blends. It's consistently monitoring the plant and making sure that the roasting is going correctly. And we have several tools to help us along with that, between actual just visual and audio perception that you get accustomed to the more frequently that you roast. We also have a photo spectrometer, which rates the carbon rating on coffee it's a double check on us to make sure that the coffee is roasted to a consistent level.
How much are you roasting, say, every week?
Right now we're roasting approximately 20,000 to 30,000 pounds a week. Varies seasonally as well as week to week. Being that we're going into May, we're probably going to do about 25 to 30,000 pounds a week for the next 5-6 weeks.
Do you want to go around and take me through from the beginning? Yeah. Maybe we'll start where the beans come in.
Okay. Right now we're looking at green beans that we have sourced from our brokers. Our brokers are based out of New York and Texas, and all of the coffees that we get are sourced through them. Each stack of coffee that we're looking at is about 10 bags per pallet. There's about 60 to 70 kilos per bag, so it's around 600, 700 kilos, or roughly 13 to 1,400 pounds of coffee per pallet. We'll get a shipment in about once every 2 weeks of about 300 bags.
Okay, so the beans come here, they're green, they're raw.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they go next?
We load them into a loader. We have a green coffee silo. Each silo is broken up. There's 10 silos in our loader. Each silo is a country, more or less, with one floating that we can do blends and things like that through that, like smaller roasts, smaller batches in. But each silo, there's 10 different silos, and each one holds roughly about 2,000 to 2,500 kilos of coffee.
After the silo, where do we go?
After the silo, we go to the scale.
Where's the scale?
It's on the bottom. It's down in a pit that's probably about 10 feet deep. I'll type in through the computer programs which coffee that I would like to produce, and each sleeve will then open specific to which blend that we're going to do and drop out the percentage of the coffee that we would like to use in that. That coffee is then transferred over to the roaster.
This is the baby of La Colombe. This is a 15-kilo roaster. This is where we started roasting in a store in 1994. It's a Vittoria roaster. This was the last one made. I think the company went down. It's called Officine Vittoria. The motor's are actually Ferrari motor. I don't think it's the same people who make the car, but it's the same name. It's like the antique machine I was talking about. We have the machine there where you can basically put a formula in and the product comes out on the other end. It's super high tech. It's like, pointy, but this is about all gut and heart. It's what a real coffee roaster is going to work on.
It's analog. It's not digital.
Exactly. It's way analog.
Tell me about this screen we're looking at.
All right. The screen is a synoptic view of the entire roasting plant. And what that's looking at is you're looking at burners, afterburners, motors to circulate the air, and motors to circulate smoke, basically.
How would you describe that picture there that we're looking at?
It looks like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's just a massive bunch of lines and valves with different motors. Like, they're basically sensors to let me know what's going on throughout the plant.
After the coffee gets weighed, where does it go next?
It's after the scale. It's transferred into a holding container that is up on top of the entire roaster. From there, it's held until I type into the synoptic, until the actual computer program, which coffee we're going to roast. Right now, I'm roasting a Nizza. We have a certain profile for Nizza, and we have a certain profile for all of the coffees that we do for Corsica, for Monte Carlo, for Fosea, so on and so forth. So each one of those coffees has a certain recipe that goes along with it for air circulation, amount of temperature that we want on the coffee as it's roasting. So I'll type that in. It'll drop into the roasting drum. And so that drum is a continually circulating drum, and it's basically got hot air pushing on it at all times. And that'll get varied during the roast, during different times during the roast, different temperatures will be in that drum, being pushed into that drum.
So tell me about what's happening here.
As the coffee finishes roasting and gets to a certain temperature, a certain profile that we're looking for, it'll drop out into a cooling tray. The cooling tray is about 10 feet in diameter, and it's a massive perforated pan. In that perforated pan is an arm with about 4, I guess you would call them fingers, coming off it to circulate the coffee. What's happening is it's pulling cold air over the coffee to try and cool it as fast as possible to stop the cooking process.
Okay. Now we're hearing a popping sound. Now tell me what that popping sound is.
Coffee goes through a bunch of different changes as it roasts. The most noticeable is when you look at coffee, it's green. When it comes in from the country of origin, it's a green coffee. And what happens is the most notable reaction you see is when you see coffee, it's brown. That's called the Maillard caramelizing reaction. And what that is it's actually turning into carbon the more it's roasted. There's also a bunch of different other processes that happen. Basically, the main two byproducts that you're losing are steam and volume in a coffee bean. As it's roasting, it goes through 2 pops. The first one, it's kind of like a massive crack that happens, and what's happening is there's a skin on the outside of the coffee that is coming off. It's sometimes called a parchment. And then also there's a center, vein that runs down the center of a coffee bean that is actually expanding. That'll happen during the second crack.
What kind of coffee are we? Which are we seeing? The Nizza here?
We're looking at Nizza right now. It's our espresso roast. It's a little bit lighter than most coffees that we have, but that's what we've deemed works best for the coffee. We have 5 different roast profiles: Nizza, Corsica, Monte Carlo, Fosea. We have a smaller batch roast that we'll use. It's a 60 kilo roast, and then we also have Afrique.
Afrique. I just had that. Is that a new one?
Yeah. The Afrique is purely a African coffee. All the components into it are strictly African. All of our other coffees are pretty much blends from throughout the world. Central America, South America, African, Indonesian, things like that. But Afrique is strictly an African coffee. It doesn't taste like a typical La Colombe blend. It has a different flavor profile than other coffees that we produce.
Have you worked places other than La Colombe?
Prior to coming to La Colombe, I was a chef. The last place I worked at I was the executive sous chef at Brasserie Perrier. I was a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, and I bounced around through kitchens throughout Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Washington, D.C.
To hear more podcasts about global cafe culture, visit www.starbarista.com.
Even now, 15 years later, almost every day when I walk into this plant, I can't believe that that we actually produced this. I mean, it started way at this other end on this little 15-kilo roaster. Myself and my business partner and about 4 bags of coffee. And there were no lights, we no air conditioning, no heat, no telephones, no nothing. And now, as you can see, it's a full-on production plant. We produce several million pounds of coffee a year.